In the quiet town of Millfield, 1993 felt like a time suspended between innocence and the looming shadows of change. 14-year-old Emily Davis was the kind of girl whose laughter could light up the dimmest corners of the dusty streets, her spirit adventurous and untamed, like the wildflowers that grew along the edges of the farm fields. She lived in a modest white house with green shutters, nestled among rolling hills that stretched toward the horizon, where the sun painted the sky in hues of amber and rose every evening. Emily was close to her family. Her mother's gentle hands always smelled faintly of lavender, her father's deep voice a steady comfort after long days, and her younger brother idolized her with wide-eyed admiration. On that crisp spring afternoon, school let out just as the clouds began their slow dance across the sky, casting soft shadows on the playground, where Emily had been chatting animatedly with her friends, the wind tugging playfully at their hair. She had plans to meet her cousin at the farm a few miles outside of town, a place where the grain bins loomed like silent sentinels guarding forgotten secrets. Emily's friends waved goodbye, watching her skip down the cracked sidewalk with a backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, her freckles catching the sunlight as she smiled. The farm was a place of comfort to Emily, a patchwork of golden fields and weathered red barns, where she often helped with chores or lost herself in daydreams amid the swaying wheat. That afternoon, she had promised her cousin they would explore the edges of the property, imagining themselves as explorers charting unknown lands. As she approached the farmyard, the scent of fresh hay mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil, and the familiar hum of cicadas filled the air like a lullaby. Her footsteps echoed softly on the gravel path leading toward the giant metal grain bins, their surfaces scratched and dulled by years of sun and rain. It was near these hulking structures that Emily was last seen, her figure outlined against the setting sun, her voice carried away by a gentle breeze as she called out for her cousin. The friends who watched from afar recalled her radiant smile and the carefree way she turned back once to wave, never imagining that those moments would be frozen in time, the last threads of normalcy before the darkness descended. As twilight began to drape its violet cloak over Millfield, Emily vanished into the whispering fields, swallowed by the vast expanse of sky and earth, leaving behind a silence that would grow heavy and unyielding, a void aching to be filled, but never quite healed. The grain bins stood still, their cold metal bodies holding fast to the secrets of that day, silent witnesses to the disappearance that would haunt the town for decades to come. The moment the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Millfield's quiet streets, panic began to ripple through the town like a restless wind, carrying with it a growing sense of dread that tightened around Emily Davis's family and friends. Her absence was first noticed by her mother, who had prepared dinner with the comforting routines of daily life, only to find an empty chair at the table, a silence where laughter once lived. Calls to neighbors and friends brought no answers, and as the night deepened, the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on their hearts. Word spread quickly through the tight-knit community, and by dawn, a frantic search was underway, a flurry of boots pounding on soft earth and flashlights piercing through the thinning fog that clung stubbornly to the fields. Volunteers, fueled by hope and desperation, combed every inch of the sprawling farmland, their voices rising in calls that echoed eerily between the barns and the towering grain bins that loomed like monoliths in the distance. The police arrived shortly after, their presence bringing a formal urgency to the search that unsettled as much as it reassured. Officers questioned witnesses, traced Emily's last known steps, and focused their attention on the grain bin where she was last seen, the cold metal surface now a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy. Search dogs picked up faint scents, the air thick with the mingled aromas of spring soil and growing crops, but no concrete leads emerged. Days bled into nights, the rhythm of the search never ceasing as the community held its breath. each moment stretching longer with the gnawing uncertainty of a missing child whose fate remained a cruel mystery. Flyers plastered on telephone poles fluttered in the breeze, each one a desperate plea for information, their edges worn and stained by rain and time. Families lit candles in windows, their flickering flames a fragile symbol of hope against the encroaching darkness. Yet, beneath the surface of collective effort, fear took root. Fear that the worst had already happened, that Emily had vanished beyond the reach of help, swallowed by the very fields she had so often roamed carefree. The quiet corners of homes became sanctuaries for whispered prayers, and the town's usual chatter was replaced by hushed conversations and worried glances. Though the search parties scoured every trail and creek, every thicket and abandoned shed, the elusive truth slipped further away like grains of sand through desperate fingers. The community grappled with disbelief and sorrow as weeks turned into months with no answers, and the once vibrant fields seemed to mourn alongside them, their golden waves a silent testament to the girl who had disappeared in their midst, leaving behind a void that nothing could fill. Emily Davis's disappearance cast a long, unrelenting shadow over her family, a darkness that seeped into every corner of their lives, reshaping the home they once knew with the heavy weight of grief and unanswered questions. Her parents, once pillars of strength and warmth, found themselves unraveling under the crushing burden of loss, their sorrow twisting into sharp edges of guilt and blame that cut through the fragile threads holding them together. Emily's mother often sat by the window, her hands trembling as she stared out at the empty fields that had swallowed her daughter, each passing day a painful reminder of the absence that could never be filled. Her father retreated into silence, the lines on his face deepening as he wrestled with a storm of emotions he could neither name nor escape, the frustration of helplessness often spilling over into moments of anger that startled even himself. Emily's younger brother, once her devoted shadow, wandered through the house like a ghost, his youthful innocence shattered by the void left behind, clutching at memories like fragile glass that threatened to shatter with the slightest touch. The family dinners that used to be lively gatherings were now muted affairs, conversations stifled by the ever-present question hanging in the air. Was she taken, or had she met a tragic accident hidden somewhere in the endless fields? Friends and neighbors, initially a steady support during the frantic search and early days of grief, gradually drifted away, their visits becoming fewer until the house was left with an aching quiet that echoed the family's fractured state. The community itself wrestled with the dual burden of hope and despair, caught between a desire to help and the discomfort of confronting a pain so profound it could not be fixed with words or kind gestures. Town meetings and vigils gave way to whispered rumors and speculation, some clinging to the possibility of abduction, while others feared the worst, that the land itself held a silent, grim secret. Each theory tore at the fragile bonds that held the family and community together, breeding suspicion and sometimes bitter accusations that left scars deeper than any physical wound. Emily's parents found themselves locked in a silent battle between holding on to hope and the slow, inevitable acceptance of loss, a journey marked by sleepless nights and tear-streaked mornings, their lives forever changed by a single day that refused to release them from its grasp. Her brother's schoolwork suffered, friendships frayed, and the simple joys of childhood were eclipsed by the shadow of absence that loomed large over every birthday and holiday. Yet, amidst the ruin, a quiet resilience flickered within the family, a fragile thread of love and memory that refused to break, keeping them tethered to one another as they navigated a landscape forever altered by grief. In the end, the haunting question, whether Emily was lost to a cruel stranger or a tragic accident, remained unanswered, a silent torment that shaped the years ahead and kept the family forever searching for light in the overwhelming darkness. Years slipped by in Millfield, like autumn leaves carried away on a slow, reluctant wind, And with each passing season, the case of Emily Davis grew colder, its edges blurring into the background of a town eager to forget but unable to fully release the weight of a vanished girl. The initial urgency that had galvanized neighbors and law enforcement alike faded as officers were reassigned to new cases, their files gathering dust in shadowed cabinets, tucked away like forgotten relics of a time when hope still burned bright. The grain bin where Emily was last seen became little more than a landmark whispered about, with a mix of sorrow and resignation, its cold metal surface a silent sentinel to a mystery locked away beneath layers of silence. Town meetings dwindled, vigils became sporadic, and the faces of those who once searched tirelessly began to fade from memory, replaced by new worries and fresh stories. Yet within the walls of the Davis household, time held a different meaning, one etched with the stubborn persistence of love and loss. Emily's parents kept the case alive in the soft glow of candlelight and the worn pages of photo albums, their hearts beating to a rhythm of unwavering hope that the silence would one day break. Her younger brother clung to memories as if they were lifelines, replaying fragments of laughter and shared secrets like a cherished melody he refused to let fade. The police department maintained a file on Emily, a collection of faded photographs, witness statements, and unanswered questions, accessible only to a handful of officers who occasionally revisited it with quiet respect and the occasional flicker of renewed interest. These cold case files were a testament to a collective failure, a reminder that some stories do not find closure in a single chapter, but linger, haunting the edges of a community's conscience. Occasionally, the case would resurface in local news or during anniversaries, stirring a fragile hope that perhaps new technology or fresh eyes might finally unravel the threads of mystery. But the truth remained elusive, woven tightly into the fabric of time, guarded by shadows cast long before and long after Emily's disappearance. The town moved forward, yet beneath the surface lay a restless ache, a shared secret that bound generations in quiet remembrance. Even strangers passing through felt the undercurrent of a story left unfinished, a grief that permeated the air like the scent of rain on dry earth. And though decades had softened the sharp edges of the past, the Davis family's vigil never faltered, a beacon of love undimmed by the years. Their hope was a stubborn flame flickering in the darkest nights, refusing to be extinguished, a promise whispered to a daughter lost but never forgotten. In this way, Emily's story remained etched in the heart of Millfield, not as a tale of defeat, but as a testament to enduring love and the unyielding search for truth. In the spring of 2025, Detective Sarah Martinez arrived in Millfield with a determination that burned brighter than the morning sun filtering through the budding trees, her passion for cold cases rooted in a desire to give voices back to those silenced by time and circumstance. At 28, Sarah carried the energy and idealism of youth, tempered by the quiet wisdom gained from years spent navigating the shadows where lost stories lingered. Her reputation as a relentless investigator had begun to spread through the county, and when the reopening of Emily Davis's long-forgotten disappearance came across her desk, she saw it not as a cold file, but as a chance to breathe new life into a pain that had haunted a family for more than 3 decades. The old farm, with its weathered barns and sprawling fields now tinged with the fresh green of spring, was a place where time seemed to have paused, holding its breath in silent witness to the secrets buried beneath layers of earth and memory. During a routine inspection of the grain bins, Sarah's eyes caught something out of place. A worn, battered backpack wedged deep within the confines of one of the towering metal structures, its fabric faded to a ghostly pale, frayed edges hinting at years of quiet suffering. The grain, golden and coarse, had formed a protective cocoon around the backpack, preserving it in a way that seemed almost miraculous, like a message from the past delivered through the persistent hands of fate. Sarah's heartbeat quickened as she carefully extracted the backpack, feeling the weight of decades pressing down on her shoulders. a silent plea for justice wrapped in torn straps and muted colors. The discovery sent ripples through the police department and the community alike, stirring a mixture of shock, hope, and unease that spread like wildfire across the town's quiet streets. For Sarah, the backpack was more than just an object. It was a tangible connection to Emily's vanished presence, a fragile thread linking the present to a past shrouded in mystery and pain. As forensic teams arrived to examine the contents, Sarah's mind raced with questions and possibilities, each one a key that might unlock the truth long hidden beneath years of silence. The weathered fabric held clues in every stitch, and the worn zippers whispered stories of a young girl who had once carried dreams, fears, and secrets within this very pack. The discovery rekindled the community's collective breath, a fragile hope flickering against the darkness of decades spent in waiting. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle firmly on her shoulders, but also a fierce resolve to honor Emily's story by chasing every lead, questioning every shadow, and refusing to let the past remain buried in silence. In that moment, beneath the vast expanse of open sky and the gentle hum of spring, a new chapter began, not just for a cold case, but for a town ready to face its long-hidden truths, and a detective who would stop at nothing to bring light to the darkest corners of Millfield. The moment forensic experts carefully unzipped the weathered backpack, a flood of quiet revelations spilled forth from its fragile depths, each item a frozen echo of Emily Davis's final days, preserved like a time capsule sealed by the grain and the relentless passage of years. Inside lay a collection of school supplies, well-used notebooks with pages curled at the edges, a collection of colored pencils dulled from use, and a water-stained lunchbox lid that once carried hopes and simple joys. But it was the diary, its leather cover cracked and worn from constant handling, that drew the most attention, a silent witness to the turmoil that had quietly built within Emily's young mind. As forensic analysts delicately turned each yellowed page, they uncovered a tapestry of emotions, woven with threads of fear, curiosity, and confusion. Emily's handwriting, at times shaky and hurried, hinted at a growing anxiety that seemed to shadow her days like a lingering storm cloud. The entries spoke of fleeting glances from unfamiliar faces and shadows lurking just beyond the edges of her vision, cryptic notes that whispered of someone watching her in places she once thought safe. A particular passage stood out, describing a man with cold eyes who appeared near the grain bin, a presence that unsettled her but remained unnamed, a ghost she dared not confront directly. Interspersed with moments of normal teenage dreams, hopes for summer adventures and friendship, were the uneasy confessions of whispered warnings from a friend who urged caution without explanation. Alongside the diary, a faded photograph slipped from between the pages, its edges softened by time and touch, depicting Emily standing with a group of classmates, her smile bright, but tinged with a sadness that hindsight now illuminated. The photo became a poignant symbol of lost innocence, a moment forever frozen just before the fracture that would change everything. As the forensic team catalogued and preserved each artifact, the items became pieces of a puzzle no one had fully dared to assemble until now, fragments of a story once obscured by time and silence. The diary's entries suggested that Emily's disappearance was not a sudden act of fate, but the culmination of a quiet, creeping fear that had taken root in her life. This newfound glimpse into her private world challenged previous assumptions, painting a picture of a girl aware of danger, but unsure how to escape it. The revelation sent ripples through the renewed investigation, igniting fresh leads and questions that would demand answers from a community long resigned to uncertainty. Emily's words, once trapped in ink and paper, now spoke aloud across the years, urging those who listened to remember, to search deeper, and to honor a truth that had remained buried too long. In this moment, the past reached out through the fragile pages of a diary and the faded smiles of a photograph, bridging the divide between what was lost and the hope that justice might still be found. The discovery of Emily Davis's backpack beneath the grain stirred more than just dust in Millfield. It reignited a fire within the cold case files and breathed new life into an investigation, long thought dormant, drawing Detective Sarah Martinez deeper into a labyrinth of memories and mysteries that had resisted resolution for over 30 years. With renewed purpose, Sarah sat across from Emily's surviving family members, their faces etched with the weariness of decades marked by unanswered questions and persistent hope, their voices trembling as they recounted fragments of the past, both familiar and startlingly new. She listened carefully to Emily's mother, whose eyes flickered with a mixture of sorrow and cautious optimism, and to her younger brother, whose guarded demeanor masked a lingering pain that time had not yet softened. Old friends, once too frightened or too loyal to speak freely, began to share stories that challenged the official narratives, revealing cracks in the foundation of the original investigation. These recollections painted a picture of Emily's final days filled with subtle tensions and unexplained encounters, shadows lurking beneath the surface of everyday life in Millfield. Sarah meticulously compared these new testimonies with the archived reports, uncovering inconsistencies and gaps that suggested crucial details had been overlooked or suppressed. Some witnesses recalled strange behavior by individuals connected to the farm, whispers of arguments and warnings that had never reached the ears of law enforcement. The detectives' inquiries peeled back layers of silence imposed by fear and small-town loyalties, unearthing threads of suspicion and betrayal that complicated the story further. Interviews with locals who had once been neighbors and classmates revealed undercurrents of unease as long-hidden secrets came to light, reshaping the understanding of what might have transpired that spring day in 1993. Sarah's presence stirred emotions long buried, forcing a reckoning with painful memories and forgotten promises. The investigation that had once seemed like a closed chapter was now a living, breathing pursuit of truth, fueled by new evidence and the relentless determination of a community unwilling to let Emily's story fade into obscurity. Each conversation brought fresh insights and raised more questions, challenging the detective to piece together a mosaic of fragmented recollections and elusive facts. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on Sarah's shoulders as she navigated the delicate balance between uncovering painful truths and respecting the fragile hopes of those still grieving. In rekindling the investigation, Sarah not only opened old wounds, but also forged new paths toward justice, reminding Millfield that time might dull memories, but cannot erase the yearning for closure. The echoes of Emily's life resonated louder than ever, carrying a promise that the past would no longer be silenced, and that the search for answers would endure until the truth was laid bare. Detective Sarah Martinez's relentless pursuit of the truth soon led her beyond the surface of Emily Davis's disappearance, plunging into the shadowed history of the old farm where the backpack was found, a place whose weathered fields and peeling fences concealed stories tangled with bitterness and silence that had long been buried beneath the fertile soil. As she delved into property records, court documents, and whispered town lore, Sarah uncovered a web of disputes, legal battles over land boundaries, fierce arguments between neighbors, and bitter rivalries that had fractured the community for decades. At the heart of this turmoil stood an enigmatic figure, Harold Jenkins, a man whose presence had cast a long shadow over the farm and its surroundings, his name uttered with a mix of reverence and fear by those who still remembered him. Harold had passed away just a year prior, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in mystery and suspicion, a man known for his temper and rumored connections to unsavory dealings that no one dared to speak openly about until now. Sarah's inquiries stirred a quiet unrest among the townsfolk, many of whom had chosen silence out of loyalty, fear, or the desire to protect fragile reputations that time had allowed to heal but not erase. Slowly, barriers began to crumble, and those who had held their tongues started to share fragments of the past, like pieces of broken glass catching the light and revealing hidden cracks. Old neighbors recounted heated exchanges with Harold, tales of threats whispered in darkened barns, and unexplained disappearances that had once been dismissed or forgotten. A former farmhand, his voice low and wary, hinted at strange visitors late at night and unsettling noises that echoed across the fields when no one was meant to be around. These revelations painted a picture of a place where fear had taken root and grown alongside the crops, nurturing secrets that festered beneath the veneer of rural normalcy. Sarah found herself navigating a maze of half-truths and guarded confessions, where every new detail seemed to open a door to deeper shadows. The weight of history pressed heavily on her investigation, reminding her that the past was never truly past in a town like Millfield, where the land held memories as stubborn and enduring as the roots of the ancient oaks lining the roads. As the community grappled with the resurfacing of old wounds, alliances shifted and trust wavered, the fragile peace disturbed by the light now shining on what had long been concealed. Yet amidst the unease, a collective resolve began to emerge, a quiet determination to face the truths that had been too long denied, to unearth the secrets beneath the surface that might finally bring justice for Emily and the other lost voices silenced by time and fear. The farm, once a symbol of steady life and hard work, now stood as a testament to the power of secrets and the courage it takes to reveal them, its fields waiting patiently for the truth to break through like spring after the harshest winter. On a late spring afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows over the quiet streets of Millfield, an elderly neighbor named Martha Whitfield decided to break decades of silence, her weathered hands trembling slightly as she recounted memories that had long been buried beneath layers of time and fear. Martha had lived next to the old farm for over 50 years, her presence as much a part of the landscape as the towering oaks and sprawling fields that framed the town. Her voice, soft yet steady, carried the weight of years as she described a night etched into her memory, the very evening Emily Davis disappeared without a trace. She recalled hearing the distant rumble of a vehicle late into the night, a sound out of place in the usually still rural darkness, followed by the faint flicker of headlights casting eerie patterns across the grain bins that stood like silent sentinels against the starry sky. Martha's eyes, clouded with age yet sharp with recollection, described a strange man's truck parked near the bins, its engine occasionally coughing as if reluctant to die, a mechanical heartbeat amid the sleeping earth. The vehicle's presence had seemed unnatural, an intrusion into the calm rhythm of Millfield's nights, and the man who sat behind the wheel had drawn curious glances from her window, though fear and uncertainty kept her from approaching or reporting it at the time. Her account painted a chilling picture of a shadow lurking in the periphery of a community too small to ignore such disturbances, yet too hesitant to confront them. The revelation rekindled embers of hope within the investigation, casting new light on the long-standing mystery and adding urgency to the search for answers that had stalled for decades. Sarah Martinez listened intently, the detective's mind racing as Martha's words added crucial context and new dimensions to the case, suggesting that Emily's disappearance was no accident, but entwined with secrets someone had tried desperately to keep hidden. The neighbor's testimony sent ripples through Millfield, reigniting suspicion and forcing the town to confront uncomfortable truths it had preferred to leave untouched. Whispers of the strange man and his vehicle grew louder, weaving into the fabric of local law once more, and the community found itself caught between the yearning for closure and the fear of what that closure might reveal. Martha's courage in coming forward reminded everyone that even the smallest voice could echo across years and change the course of a story thought closed. Her vivid recollections became a beacon for investigators and a spark of renewed determination to uncover the truth that had long been obscured by silence. In the quiet that followed her revelation, the grain bins no longer seemed merely relics of the past, but rather markers of a turning point, a place where the hidden witness had finally stepped into the light and offered a chance to rewrite the ending of a tragedy that had haunted Millfield for far too long. In the sterile glow of the police station's evidence room, Detective Sarah Martinez watched the grainy footage flicker across the screen, the old surveillance video from a nearby gas station offering a glimpse into a night long past but not forgotten, each frame a pixelated thread woven into the fabric of Emily Davis's mysterious disappearance. The black and white images revealed a dark-colored pickup truck, its headlights cutting through the inky shadows as it rolled slowly along the dusty road that led to the farm where Emily was last seen, the vehicle's license plate blurred but enough to narrow down the list of owners through painstaking digital enhancement and cross-referencing with county records. Sarah's trained eyes focused intently on the driver's silhouette, noting the broad shoulders and the way the man adjusted his cap as he scanned the road ahead, a figure both familiar and elusive, emerging from the past like a ghost reluctant to reveal its secrets. The footage, recorded mere hours after Emily vanished, suggested that someone had been near the farm under cover of darkness, their presence a dark stain on the quiet rural night that had once seemed so peaceful. Armed with this new evidence, Sarah began to assemble a list of suspects, each name carrying its own web of motives and hidden histories, some with long-standing grudges tied to the farm's tangled disputes, others with shadowed pasts marked by suspicion and unspoken rumors. The detective pored over every detail, searching for patterns and discrepancies, her mind racing to connect the dots between the mysterious man on the screen and the cryptic hints from Emily's diary and Martha's testimony about a strange vehicle. As she interviewed neighbors, acquaintances, and old friends, subtle shifts in their stories hinted at secrets long buried beneath polite smiles and cautious silences, as if the man in the pickup had cast a long, cold shadow that still lingered in the town's collective conscience. Sarah sensed the delicate balance she had to maintain, pushing forward with relentless determination while navigating the fragile loyalties and fears that gripped the community. Each step closer to the truth threatened to unravel the fragile peace that had settled over Millfield, yet the weight of justice demanded that no stone remain unturned. The detective's tireless pursuit uncovered connections between the man on the footage and a string of incidents previously dismissed as unrelated. A series of late-night trespasses, whispered threats, and unexplained confrontations that painted a portrait of a figure driven by anger and desperation. As the investigation tightened around her, Sarah prepared to confront the suspect, aware that this moment might finally bring clarity to a mystery that had haunted families and a town for over 30 years. The old surveillance footage, once overlooked and forgotten, had become the key to unlocking a truth long hidden in the shadows, promising answers and perhaps a measure of peace for those left waiting in the quiet aftermath of a tragedy too profound to forget. Detective Sarah Martinez found herself standing on the worn porch of a weathered farmhouse at the edge of Millfield, the air heavy with the scent of earth and rain, as she prepared to confront a man whose name had long been whispered in uneasy tones throughout the community, but whose face had remained hidden in the shadows of time. The man, Leonard Graves, now a recluse living in the solitude of his dilapidated home, had been linked to the pickup truck caught on the gas station footage from the night Emily Davis vanished, a connection that had pulled Sarah deeper into the tangled web of secrets and silence enveloping the town. When Leonard finally opened the door, his eyes wary and guarded, the years etched lines of bitterness and regret across his face, and his voice, though rough with disuse, carried the weight of a man who had seen too much and said too little. Sarah's questions were direct but measured, probing the boundaries between memory and denial, as she sought to unravel the truth from layers of evasion and half-truths. Under the mounting pressure of her persistent inquiries and the undeniable evidence pointing his way, Leonard confessed to seeing Emily on that fateful night, a moment frozen in his mind like a painful scar. Yet he vehemently denied any involvement in her disappearance, insisting that his presence near the farm was innocent, a matter of chance rather than design. His words hung in the air, fragile yet charged with the tension of a man caught between fear and remorse, as if revealing too much might unleash consequences he was unprepared to face. The conversation soon spiraled into a tense exchange, where unspoken alliances and old grudges simmered just beneath the surface, threatening to erupt like a long-dormant volcano awakened by the tremors of truth. Sarah sensed the fragile balance of trust and suspicion within Millfield was shifting, the man's confession acting as a catalyst that exposed fissures in relationships that had once seemed unbreakable. Neighbors and family members found themselves re-evaluating their loyalties, wrestling with the possibility that those they had trusted might hold darker secrets than they ever imagined. Leonard's partial truths fueled rumors and speculation, some rallying to his defense, others demanding justice with renewed vigor. The detective navigated this delicate terrain with care, aware that every word spoken and every silence held could either heal old wounds or deepen the fractures within the community. As the interview concluded, Sarah left the farmhouse with a renewed sense of purpose, tempered by the sobering reality that the path to truth was seldom straightforward. Leonard's revelations, incomplete as they were, marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, shedding light on shadows that had long concealed pain and fear, and setting the stage for the confrontation with deeper, more unsettling truths yet to come. The quiet farmstead behind her stood as a testament to the complexity of human nature, where confessions mingled with denial and the search for justice wove through a landscape scarred by secrets and silent suffering. The grain bin, once thought to be merely a silent witness to Emily Davis's disappearance, revealed a darker, more sinister secret beneath its rusted surface, as forensic teams carefully pried open a hidden compartment concealed beneath where the weathered backpack had been found, exposing a cache of items that sent a chill through Detective Sarah Martinez and everyone involved in the investigation. Among the carefully preserved artifacts were personal belongings that did not belong to Emily, but instead matched descriptions of another missing person from Millfield, a young man named Daniel Harper, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances several years before Emily's disappearance. The discovery suggested that the grain bin was not just a solitary site of tragedy, but part of a haunting pattern woven into the very fabric of the town, a chilling indication that something far more sinister had been at work beneath the peaceful veneer of Millfield's rural calm. The items, an old watch with a cracked face, a school ring engraved with initials, and a torn photograph faded by time, became silent witnesses to a series of vanishings that had been quietly dismissed or forgotten by many, but never by those who had loved and searched for the lost. Sarah's heart weighed heavy as she pieced together the implications, realizing that the grain bin was a macabre repository of pain and secrets, a tomb of memories carefully concealed beneath layers of grain and dust. The finding breathed new urgency into the case, prompting a deeper dive into the town's history and the dark currents that had perhaps flowed unseen beneath its surface for decades. Investigators broadened their scope, re-examining cold files and speaking with families of other missing persons whose disappearances had shared troubling similarities, their stories now linked by this grim discovery. The revelation fractured the fragile sense of security that Millfield's residents had clung to, forcing them to confront the unsettling possibility that their community had harbored a predator, or predators whose reach extended far beyond what anyone had dared to imagine. Sarah's resolve hardened with the knowledge that the investigation was no longer about a single lost child, but about unraveling a web of terror that had left scars on countless lives. The grain bin, once a symbol of everyday rural life, had transformed into a haunting emblem of the darkness lurking beneath familiar grounds, its hidden compartment a stark reminder that evil often hides in plain sight, shielded by silence and fear. As news of the discovery spread, the town grappled with a mixture of horror, disbelief, and a desperate yearning for answers that could bring justice and healing. Families long resigned to uncertainty found a renewed flicker of hope, a chance to finally understand the fates of their loved ones, and to demand accountability. In the days that followed, Sarah and her team worked tirelessly, driven by the knowledge that every secret uncovered was a step closer to breaking the cycle of loss and silence. The grain bin's final secret had shattered the illusion of safety, illuminating a path through darkness that Millfield was forced to walk together, seeking redemption in the truth that could no longer be hidden. The revelations unearthed by Detective Sarah Martinez sent shockwaves through the small town of Millfield, awakening a restless storm beneath the calm surface that had long masked unspoken fears and buried pain, forcing a community to confront a dark history it had tried desperately to forget but could no longer deny. Public meetings, once sparsely attended and tinged with polite resignation, now filled with fervent voices demanding answers, accountability, and justice for the missing souls whose disappearances had been written off as unfortunate mysteries or accidents swept under the rug of time. Families who had suffered in silence for years found strength in one another, forming fragile bonds of solidarity as they shared stories and grievances that mirrored each other's loss, weaving together a tapestry of collective grief and defiance. The once tight-knit community felt the weight of these shared traumas settle heavily upon its shoulders, a burden that could not be shouldered quietly any longer. The air was thick with a mixture of sorrow and anger, as neighbors who had exchanged cautious greetings for decades now faced each other with eyes opened wide to the uncomfortable truths lying just beneath the surface of their daily lives. The local law enforcement found itself under intense scrutiny, its past failures and oversights laid bare in the harsh light of public inquiry, compelling a reckoning that extended beyond the boundaries of individual cases to question systemic flaws and neglected responsibilities. Officers who had once been regarded with unquestioning trust now faced difficult questions about the thoroughness of previous investigations, the depth of their commitment, and the pressures that had led to corners being cut or leads being ignored. The community demanded reforms, transparency, and a renewed dedication to protecting its most vulnerable members, sparking conversations about how to rebuild trust and ensure that no voice would be silenced or overlooked in the future. Local leaders, activists, and ordinary citizens found themselves united by a common cause, channeling grief into action and resolve, their meetings echoing with plans for better support systems, improved communication channels, and educational programs designed to prevent further tragedies. The town's dark history, once whispered about in hushed tones and relegated to the shadows, was now thrust into the center of public consciousness, transforming Millfield from a quiet rural enclave into a community awakened to its own resilience and capacity for change. The reckoning was painful and raw, peeling back layers of denial and complacency to reveal wounds that had festered beneath the surface. But it was also a beginning, a collective step toward healing, justice, and hope. As families gathered to honor the memories of their lost loved ones, their voices rising in unison, the town found itself bound together not just by shared sorrow, but by a newfound determination to rewrite the narrative, ensuring that the tragedies of the past would serve as catalysts for a safer, more vigilant future. In the heart of Millfield, amid tears and testimony, anger and apology, a community took its first tentative steps on the long road to redemption and reconciliation, refusing to let silence be the final chapter. After decades of grief and unanswered questions, Emily Davis's family gathered beneath a sky softened by the gentle light of an autumn afternoon to finally unveil a proper memorial, a stone etched with her name, and a life remembered not just for its tragic end, but for the love and hope that had endured through the years. The ceremony was a quiet, yet profound moment of healing, for a community that had long carried the weight of loss on tired shoulders. A day where tears mingled with smiles and memories blossomed like wildflowers breaking through cracked pavement. Friends, neighbors, and even those once hesitant to confront the pain joined hands in a circle of solidarity, their voices raised in stories and prayers that honored Emily's spirit and the resilience of those left behind. As flowers were laid gently at the base of the monument, each petal seemed to carry the collective sorrow and strength of a town learning to heal, the air thick with the bittersweet fragrance of remembrance and renewed purpose. Detective Sarah Martinez stood quietly at the edge of the gathering, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and solemn pride, reflecting on the arduous journey that had brought them to this day. She thought of the countless hours poured into the case, the fragments of truth painstakingly pieced together like shards of broken glass reflecting a fractured past, and the unwavering persistence that had refused to let Emily's story fade into oblivion. The memorial was more than a tribute. It was a testament to the power of memory and the unyielding search for justice that had united a fractured community and given voice to those once silenced by fear and time. Sarah understood that healing was neither quick nor easy, that it was a mosaic crafted from moments of courage, forgiveness, and the shared acknowledgement of pain. As she looked around at the faces etched with sorrow and hope, she recognized the profound human capacity to endure and find light amid the darkest shadows. The closure that this memorial symbolized did not erase the scars, but offered a sanctuary where grief could be held tenderly, and the past could be honored without being chained to despair. In the days that followed, the community continued to come together, organizing support groups and remembrance events, weaving a fabric of care and connection that would sustain them through the seasons ahead. For Emily's family, the memorial was a beacon, a place where the ache of loss was met with the embrace of collective love, a sacred space where they could finally say goodbye while carrying her memory forward. Detective Sarah Martinez, inspired by the resilience she witnessed, reaffirmed her commitment to those still searching for answers, knowing that every case closed was a step toward healing not only for the families involved, but for the fabric of the community itself. The story of Emily Davis, once a painful wound, had become a chapter of courage and remembrance, a reminder that even in the face of profound loss, the human spirit can find peace through truth, connection, and the enduring power of love. In the months following the resolution of Emily Davis's case, a wave of change swept across law enforcement agencies nationwide, fueled by the determination and persistence that had finally pierced through decades of silence and neglect, transforming the way cold cases were approached and investigated with a renewed sense of urgency and compassion. Detective Sarah Martinez found herself at the forefront of this movement, her work on Emily's disappearance serving as both a catalyst and a guiding light for reforms, aimed at ensuring that no missing person would ever again become just a forgotten file-gathering dust. The protocols for reviewing old evidence were overhauled, new technologies embraced, and cross-agency collaboration strengthened, all inspired by the lessons learned from Millfield's long journey through grief and justice. Sarah, now more seasoned and deeply reflective, carried the weight of Emily's story with her as she turned her attention to a new case, each step forward imbued with the knowledge that behind every number was a life, a family, and a community waiting for answers. The town of Millfield itself began to heal and evolve, its residents embracing a future marked by vigilance and hope rather than fear and resignation. Memorials and community programs dedicated to missing persons became pillars of local culture, fostering awareness and unity in a way that honored the past while protecting the future. Schools incorporated lessons on empathy and safety, and neighborhood watch initiatives blossomed, knitting the town tighter together with threads of shared responsibility and care. Families who had once felt isolated found solace in support groups and networks, that gave voice to their pain and strength to their endurance. As Sarah navigated this new chapter in her career, she was reminded daily that the pursuit of truth was not just a professional duty, but a profound human endeavor that demanded resilience, courage, and compassion. The lessons of Emily's case resonated deeply within her, shaping her approach to each investigation and fueling her commitment to justice. She understood that while no case was the same, the universal longing for closure and peace connected them all, and it was her mission to bridge the gap between loss and hope. The story of Millfield and Emily Davis became a beacon in law enforcement circles, a testament to what could be achieved when persistence met empathy and when communities rallied together in the face of tragedy. In the quiet moments before dawn, as Sarah prepared to embark on her next investigation, she carried with her the enduring spirit of a town that refused to forget, and a girl whose memory had sparked a new dawn. The future, once shadowed by uncertainty, now shimmered with possibility, a landscape where no missing voice would be silenced, and where every search held the promise of answers and healing. Millfield stood as a symbol of renewal, a place transformed by loss but defined by hope, its people united in a commitment that ensured that every person who disappeared would be remembered, sought after, and honored, no matter how much time had passed.